to this morning's webinar, the carbon tax and your business. My name's Dave. I work with GreenBizCheck here on the southern Gold Coast. We work with organisations around sustainability. I'm also a co-director of Co-efficiency Australia, which delivers sustainability programs to not-for-profit organisations in the country. And I've recently joined the board of Enviro Industry, which is the peak organisation, the peak body for the environment industry here on the Gold Coast. Joining us today is David Closey from Oculus Financial. Now, David, if you wouldn't mind just giving a quick introduction, a little background about yourself and Oculus.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Oculus is a accounting financial services business on the Gold Coast. We're been around for quite a long time, 64 years. I'm obviously not that old, but we specialise in all small business taxation, compliance, business growth matters.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Dave. So the Clean Energy Future Plan, or probably better known or portrayed in the media as the carbon tax, is what we're here to talk about today. Now, the Clean Energy Future Plan actually has 4 components to it. So while there's been a big media focus on the carbon tax or the price on carbon, that's actually only one component of that plan. Supporting renewable energies, there's a considerable amount of money being invested as part of this plan into supporting those types of energies. There's some measures being put in place to improve energy efficiency, which we'll touch on later, and a couple of those impact small to medium business. And also on the agricultural side of things, there's some changed land use components as part of that package. Now, how it will actually work. These are basically the mechanics of how it will all kick off. From the 1st of July next year, it will run for 3 years with a fixed price. It starts at $23 a tonne. It will incrementally increase year by year for those 3 years, but that's already been set out by the government. And then after that 3-year period, an actual emissions trading scheme will commence. The government will actually determine the cap on emissions once that starts, and the market will set the price. So that'll kick in 3 years. But as I mentioned, that's the basic mechanics behind how it will work. In terms of how does it reduce emissions, I found this lovely little image here as a nice way of explaining. So from the top left here, the federal government's going to impose the carbon price, and that gets paid by these guys, Australia's largest polluters, predominantly electricity generators. They will pass on some of their costs to Australians, be that households and businesses. Now, with businesses and households faced with increasing electricity prices, that's a certain amount of motivation to look to low emission goods, look to renewable energies, ways to defray the increased cost of electricity. That's going to promote, obviously, if the households and businesses change behaviour and move towards those low emission goods, then that is going to help reduce emissions. Carbon intensive industries are also going to want to move away from actually paying the price on carbon, and that is the simple explanation that's been posted up there about how it is actually going to achieve the end goal of reducing carbon emissions. Now, what will that actually mean for small to medium-sized business? Now, I'm assuming that most of the people listening today are not from, don't belong to one of the top 500 largest polluters in the country. That group, the top 500 largest polluters, are the ones who will be paying the carbon tax directly. For small to medium business owners, you'll be looking at electricity as the major impact from this, from the Clean Energy Future Plan. Now, BDO Australia, a national accounting firm, have done their own report and done their crunching of the numbers, and the estimates seem to come out at around 30% increase in electricity price over the next 3 years. Others have thrown at 10% a year. Whether that analogy can be made, I'm not sure, but we're roughly looking at that kind of increase. What we are saying to small business and medium-sized business is, through the actual package itself, there's some compensation for households, there's some compensation for the big end of town, but for small to medium businesses, there's not a lot. So you basically need to come up with an action plan, decide what you're going to do about these rising electricity prices from the 1st of July next year, And we would recommend that you've got 7 months until the 1st of July. Now would be a great time, especially through December, January, if you yourself or staff have a bit of downtime to look at what you've been doing this year and put some plans in place for next year. One of the good things for small to medium business is this plan won't have any reporting or compliance obligations, so there's not going to be any additional forms for you to fill out. Unlike the GST, I guess, where you have to fill out your BAS every quarter. Now, in terms of energy efficiency, I touched on this previously. There is a $40 million has been earmarked for an energy efficiency information grants program. That is going to be rolled out. Excuse me. That is going to be rolled out to industry associations via the industry associations. So in the first and second quarter of next year, no doubt you'll be having contact from your industry association, relevant body, if they've accessed that funding to roll out that information through webinars, through training sessions, through workshops. One point on energy efficiency that we do want to raise, yes, it's going to bring cost savings, but it'll also, you can use it as a point of difference and a marketing tool to differentiate yourself from your competitors. One thing that really stuck out to me recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Christine Milne, who was one of the architects of the Clean Energy Future Plan, and she really kind of crystallized it for me, I guess, that it's time for the kind of mindset to shift. Now that the plan has actually passed the lower house and the Senate, it's happening. So how are we going to maximize the financial benefit from this plan and be seen as a leader? So there's two prongs to attack. Reduce your electricity use and also use those energy efficiency measures that you're putting in yourself to make yourself more attractive to eco-savvy consumers. Now, David, if you're there, we've reached part of the presentation to have a bit of a chat about one of the other measures that's targeted for small to medium businesses in terms of the tax system or a tax incentive, and I'll pass over to you to run through that.
Certainly. In the May budget, the government announced that they were going to have an instant write-off for any assets purchased up to $5,000, which is a major increase from the $1,000 that we already have right now. That was going to commence from 1 July 2012. When the carbon tax scheme came out, they increased that threshold of $5,000 to $6,500. There's not a real lot of information to say that there have to be complying assets, whether the assets have to be new assets or they can be second-hand assets. Some of the stuff that I've read says new, and some of the stuff says just assets. So we're waiting to see exactly what they're going to say if there's complying assets. What I think may happen is they may say that if they're an energy efficient asset, then you'll get the immediate write-off. Otherwise, if you're buying just a general asset, you may not. But they haven't said anything of that on this stage yet. Whilst Dave's got that on the screen there to invest in more energy efficient equipment, it's not actually written anywhere, or there's no actual stuff out there to say that's what's going to happen just yet.
But that's my understanding of the from the actual
reason for it. That's right. Yeah.
So there's no, currently there's no list of or definition of what an eligible asset is. Is that correct?
Nothing's been published as yet.
Okay. So as that information comes to hand, I guess this is obviously part of the reason that we've invited you along today. Is your accountant is going to be one source of information to help prepare for the scheme. I've just been having a look on the actual website. Yeah, the whole thrust behind the package is to move to more energy efficient equipment. So that would be my understanding, is that's where the focus will go.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. Just pausing a second if we have any specific questions there for David coming through. Let me see those come through. While we're waiting for those, we did have a question about what are the main renewable energies being supported by the package. I believe there's two elements to the package. One is out of that 13 billion funding, part of that will be dedicated to existing renewable energy. So you've got solar, wind, geothermal, and there'll be a sizable chunk of that funding that will go to developing and exploring new technologies. I hope that answers the question, Cassandra. And okay, we'll wait and see if any others come through for you, David, but I might move on with the rest of the presentation.
Certainly.
Okay, what I thought I'd throw in for these next couple of slides is just a couple of simple suggestions about how to reduce your energy use, and a lot of these are actual behavioural changes, so they don't require any or a minimal investment in capital or new technology. Mobile phone chargers, if you leave them plugged in and switched on when you're not actually charging the phone, they use probably the majority of the power that they would if you were actually charging the phone, so it's a really good idea to make sure you switch them off, pull them out of the wall when you finish using them. Obviously switching things off wallet generally to avoid standby power is another great little tip. These are all pretty straightforward things, but it's good to do a quick checklist of is this happening in my business, in my office. Disabling screensavers and switching off monitors when they aren't being used. Switching off the lights when not in the room. Now that can be getting people to manually switch things off when they leave toilets or meeting rooms, or actually going the next step in installing sensors, movement sensors. In terms of IT, which obviously can be a big user of electricity, virtualization can mean reducing the number of servers that you actually have on site. There's the technology these days to run 2, 3, 4 existing boxes in the one box, or to actually outsource the whole lot and move your applications to the cloud. Efficient lighting is another big area where big savings can be made. Obviously there's LED, those kind of light, moves to be made with lighting. Moving away from traditional desktop PCs, laptops, obviously portable technologies these days with smartphones and tablets, and thin client technology. If you're not sure what that is, ask your IT department. They're all very good examples of ways of running your IT department more efficiently and making your staff more mobile. Make sure that your appliances that you're buying are Energy Star rated. And in terms of your air conditioning, optimizing those air conditioning settings. Now that may mean being a little bit flexible, and if it's a little cold, wearing a jumper. If it's a little warm, opening a window instead of cranking the aircon. So just some quick suggestions there. I'd just like to throw out to everyone listening now, just to recap a bit of what we said about energy efficiency. There's obviously benefits using less power. There are cost savings available. But just curious to see if anyone's willing to throw forward any other benefits that would come from being more energy efficient. I touched on some of these before. We'll give that a second there. Okay, I think we'll keep scooting along. So there's other benefits we're alluding to, staff engagement. So making your business more sustainable, being more energy efficient, moving your business towards operating in a more sustainable fashion. There's lots and lots of studies out there showing that staff are looking for environmentally friendly businesses to work with, particularly the Gen Y. If you've lots of reports of interviews with Gen Y where they're actually asking, you know, what's your environmental policy? What are you doing in terms of the environment within your business? Secondly is it'll help you attract eco-savvy clients and customers. There was a press release, I think it was as recently as yesterday, it came out from IKEA that they've done some research and found that nearly 3/4 of Australians consider the environment when they're making purchasing decisions, and half of us are likely to be influenced by a company's social and environmental practices. So what we're suggesting is set yourself up as a leader, get ahead of your competition, and move towards this clean energy future. The other big area that it's becoming very useful to have environmental credentials and be putting measures in place is through tendering. Many government and corporate tenders these days that are asking for an environmental policy, and can you prove and show us what you're actually doing. The last of those is actually reducing your environmental impact. So jump on to the next slide. Now the next obvious question is, what now? I've thrown up a few resources here, and we can make these available by email after the webinar. The actual website for the Clean Energy Future package is there. There's obviously will be more and more information becoming available on that as the program approaches the 1st of July next year. From GreenBizCheck point of view, we offer a trial assessment, so you can jump on our website, run through a mini assessment to get an idea of a bit of a benchmark where your office is currently sitting now, and some basic recommendations about how you could reduce the footprint of your office. And following on from that, we are more than happy. We've got GreenBizCheck representatives across the country, more than happy to sit down with you in your office, have a little look around and make some suggestions about measures that could be put in place within your actual office. All right. Oh, now we've reached the question slide. So again, we'll throw out to, we do have a few minutes left. I'll throw out to everyone listening, if there are some other questions, please pop them into the question box there. David, if you have any other comments that you wanted to make, now would be a great time to throw those in.
I think you touched on the non-reporting entities, the bigger end of town are the ones that are going to have to pay, the liable entities, ones that are going to have to pay the carbon tax. From a small business point of view, I don't believe there's going to be too much of an impact, except for, as you said, price impact.
Yep.
We're going to have to, small businesses are going to have to assess what the impact is for costs and then pass it on to your clients, and maybe identify any government grants and tax opportunities that are going to come our way. They're not, as I said, there's not a real lot put out on that just yet. And I suppose also, if you're a small business, if you've got a long-term contract, you'll have to review that, obviously from 1 July next year to make sure that it takes into account any carbon or any increase in cost to do with the carbon tax.
Sure. And I guess one point that I've been, continually attempting to drive home and talk about in the presentations that I've been giving around this particular topic of late is energy. I mentioned before that electricity prices, the most likely impact is electricity prices are going to increase. Does that necessarily mean that your electricity bill will increase? Well, if you continue with business as usual, then yes, it will. So it's that 10%, 12% over a year that you may be looking at. What we'd recommend is make those minor changes, make those changes to behaviour, so that you don't your electricity bill actually doesn't end up increasing. You may even find you're able to reduce your electricity spend. Again, once engaging your staff in these kind of programs, running workshops at the beginning of this kind of program, and continually involving them as the program progresses is a great way to really get them involved, and you may end up exceeding the expectations. Now we had a question come through there from Leanne about accessing reports which point to employees looking for eco-savvy organisations. I will, yes, most definitely, I have that somewhere on my computer. I'll look that up and we'll email those out after the webinar. Okay, so if that's it for the questions, I will get that report out from Leanne about employees looking for eco-savvy organisations. I just don't have it at my fingertips right there. And another comment from Cassandra: I didn't realise staff were all that concerned about environmental impact. That's new. Thanks for that comment, Cassandra. As I mentioned, there have been a number of studies that are looking to that, and particularly, I guess, the sector of the workforce that may be more vocal about that may be your Gen Y. That's definitely something that's coming through from that sector of the workforce. So as I mentioned earlier, if there's no more questions, we might wrap it up around there. We've just come in under time. I will be forwarding on some information about the mini assessment that I mentioned from GreenBizCheck and the details of the free green console that GreenBizCheck is happy to offer to anyone today who's been listening. If you'd like to take that up, there'll be links in the email to reply. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, David Closey from Oculus Financial here on the sunny Gold Coast. Thanks for your input.
No problem.
And we will bid you all adieu. Thank you very much for listening.